Greetings, welcome to Talking in Stations. Today is the 14th of July, a Wednesday. I had to double check there. Today we have Kenneth Feld, who'll be talking
Good evening.
about the recent Alliance Tournament announcements. Alliance Tournament 17, I am absolutely hyped. I can't wait to, talk about... Well, actually, no, I won't be able to talk about it this time, but we will be talking about it on, I believe, Friday and Sunday. I hope to ensure there's a good show for it. Grigoran, as my co-host. Damn it, he's dead. Okay, but the main coverage today will be the fountain fight. We also have Shen,
Hello, hello.
and coming from the fountain fight of J5A recently, we have two people on, the opposite sides of the battlefield. Sandrin Stone.
Hello.
And Velasius from Dockworkers.
Hey, how's it going?
But we'll start off with Kenneth. Kenneth, the Alliance Tournament's back.
Yes, it is. The CSM just found out about this a few days ago. And to say I was excited, I mean, PL has a fairly long history in the Alliance tournament. I don't know what all is going to happen with us in this one. But I always liked it, even from way back when. I really like the Eve bet aspect of it. I'm kind of bummed that there's no more Eve bet. Um, I know why they stopped it, and I agree with them stopping it, but it still doesn't tug at my heart a little bit to not be able to wager 8-10 billion on something. So, but other than that, I'm super excited that it's coming back. The people that are running it are passionate about it. This has been in the works for a while. I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, Elise saved the day. He joined CCP, or CCP Swift joined CCP and brought the tournament back." But this was in the works long before he joined CCP, and I can't wait for it to happen.
Which employee do we have to thank for orchestrating this and getting it to return?
I don't know that I'm allowed to say. I know that CCP Aurora has put a lot of work into this for sure. I don't know that there's any one single person, but I know that she has put a ton of work into this and pushed for it quite heavily.
Very well. Also today is Hilmar's birthday, the, founder and CEO of CCP Games. So to Hilmar, happy birthday.
We're not gonna sing?
I'm not too keen on singing just yet. I don't think that my voice is prepared for it. I'll sound like a broken record, and I'll embarrass myself more than I already have been today. But today's event, the meat and potatoes of the topic, will be the fountain fight in J5A. I'll open the battle report for one that happened a few days before. I believe this will be the armor time of the Fortizar, but the Forsaken Empire Fortizar has been saved this time. In the first fight, we can see the people participating are Dockworkers, Out of the Blue, Triumvirate, and, some groups associated with Volta. And on the opposing side, we had Forsaken Empire and the other members of the Fountain Alliance, known as FAPI. This would be Forsaken Empire, Federation Uprising, Celestial Empire, and Down Under Syndrome. In the first fight, Dockworkers used a lot of Tengus. I believe this was this before the T3 changes to remove SP, or was this after, Velasius?
Yeah, it was just before, and we've actually had this entire Tengu fleet sitting in Losec collecting dust for the past 2 years. So when we were looking for options, when we got the deployment offer on the table, it was kind of a no-brainer that we just import this, because we wanted something shield-based to fight on a Fortizar with, because it's just much easier with structure bombs. So it just fit the bill, and we just imported it.
And on the opposing side, they fielded quite a few capitals to fend you guys off, but I presume they weren't successful in stopping you putting the structure into hull.
The capitals, no. So to paint the picture is that there was two portions of this armor timer fight. And what makes this kind of way more interesting than the typical null fight is that there's just one gate between each people. There's on one side of the gate is the out of the blue Fortizar, where everybody stages from the attacking side over in Cloud Ring, and then in J5A on the direct other side of that gate is the Fortizar. That's, I believe, is the staging for all for those fountain people. So what they did is they set up their fighters on the gate to Cloud Ring. Blanking on the name. It's like B-D something. And there was two actual Tengu fleets. There was mine as with out of the blue as well. When I say mine, I mean dockworkers. We were AB with HML and jams. So after you take the gate, you don't have your links or your ECM on fighters. We lose two Tengus, but then after that we stabilize, and then I was able to call Triumvirate's separate Tengu fleet, which was Micro Warp Jet Fits, and we had them waiting. So once we get control of the gate, it actually kind of forced them to reship into Gilas. So the carriers were actually pretty meaningless overall, other than the initial two they volleyed on the gate.
Well, I believe Forsaken Empire and Lord Servant, they've been big fans of using the Gilas. How do they perform in this battle in particular?
It was very well. They definitely they hit their ranges right. They started their positioning in the proper places, which I think a lot of newer people with 100 min fleets don't give enough respect to, is that you have to start fights in very specific positions to take full advantage of it. And these guys definitely knew what they were doing with where they needed to position. So it was just a giant trade and grind over this Fortizar, and both sides were alphaing each other until it got reinforced, basically.
It was honestly, it looks like a really even fight based on the ISK lost.
Yeah, I was mostly thrilled with the outcome. People can look at that and say it's a bunch of Tengus lost, but if you go near to ISK even on a Fortizar grid that you're reinforcing, that's really difficult to do. So I was pretty happy with the outcome overall.
But yesterday we have the real meat and potatoes, which I have the battle report. Wait a minute, this is a battle report from Lord Servant. He split this into four. I'm not using this.
Getting the sides for yesterday is a mess. Like,
yeah.
Hopefully no real big friendly fight, but okay, I'm definitely not using that. Split into four sides to make himself look good. But okay, this is the battle from yesterday. And were you able to destroy the structure or not at all?
Not at all. So we were kind of joking about this just before the show, but the attackers, when I say attackers, I mean out of the blue dockworkers in Triumvirate. I mean, RC was there too, but all of us are definitely a little more casual, in my opinion, than how you would have the rest of Nullsec approach a fight like this. We weren't in system early. We didn't ref any of the jump bridges or anything like that. So, I mean, we didn't even get off the gate. Is what I mean. Is all three defending fleets were able to get set up on the gate before we jumped into system, and 10 minutes into the fight on the command comms, we all just agreed, let's just fight and just not even attempt to go to the fort. I'm not sure even if we could have gone to the fort, even if we tried. I'm not sure if that would have happened, but we all just agreed to let's just brawl in the gate.
I see. These are, pretty impressive numbers from both sides. Now, I see that there were revelations being committed, there were dreadnoughts on field, there were factors on field. Were either side willing to deploy even further capital assets or super capital assets to escalate and deal with these, or was that out of the question?
I think there would have been a little too much fear from both sides. One is the system was jammed beforehand, so anything from the B-D side, we would have had to gate in, and that means hoping that there's not a dictator in position, which there was. So at least from the attacker's side, it would be very risky to try and gate supers or anything like that, because if you lose control of the gate, then you can't reinforce with other caps. So that would be really tricky to do. And then from the other side, I think they would be a little hesitant to actually warp in supers, because that's what they would have had to do, just due to the number of people that were just involved in this fight. I think that would have been kind of risky for them to do.
What about you, Sandrin? What was your plan going into this fight on your side of things? Since you have the super capital asset advantage.
I mean, we kind of do in the fact that we could obviously move assets from Delve quite quickly, but obviously there is a lot of hesitance from us to take any assets out of Delve that we can't immediately just, at worst, dock up, death clone back, we're back in Delve. So we have some caches in the area, everyone has caches in anywhere that's got NPC space. But going into the fight, I had no intentions of ever escalating. I wanted to keep it purely to subcaps, just so that if, because I know as soon as I leave Delve, goons are going to do something in Delve, but there's nothing going on in Delve right now, so I've got to get content for the boys, so I took them off to this fight, and you'll notice if you watch the VODs of the fight, we were one of the first groups to disengage. I think Frat technically disengaged before us because they lost the whole fleet, but... But we disengaged quite early because Skeens realised, they're off in Fountain, we should do something about this. So I had to run back to Delve after the fort repaired. But I had no intentions of escalating.
Did they do anything while you were doing this, or...?
They killed a whole Athanor. Someone had 4 Athanors anchoring and didn't tell anyone, so they managed to kill one before we figured out what they were doing, and then... counterformed, my fleet got back. We managed to drop Elo on his... He tried to drop Horde on their way home, and we ended up just dropping him and kind of killed a good chunk of his fleet and his monitor, and then they run home. But yeah.
On the topic of dead structures, this fortizar, if it were at risk, did you have something in mind to save it?
Yeah, please, Sanchit, go ahead.
I mean, like I said, we have caches in the area. If it got to that point, then I could have said, hey, break out the dreads. But the whole fight was set up in a way that it would be really awkward for either side to escalate. We had the jammers in system. We made sure they online safely. We had bubbles on the gate. We had, a dictator in BTEC D or a few dictators in BTEC D that could just stop reinforcements. We didn't want to escalate, and we made it hard for our opponents to escalate, so...
Let me ask you then, Sandra, did you intentionally let those 4 revs go through?
Gate in? Kind of, yeah. I wanted to... I had a spy in comms, not surprise, big surprise, we have spies, who was telling me everything that was going on. It's like, okay, let's see what they do with that, because I thought they were going to be Horde Dreads originally, because... we actually weren't coordinating, me and the Fappy alliances. We had a group chat where we were giving basic, I'm going after X, you go after Y directions, but there wasn't much coordination for us. So I wasn't sure if they were just tanking the whole time and you guys couldn't kill them, and that's why you kept bullying me, or so I didn't realize they were anti-cap going after the big AB Deepwater faxes, I think it was.
Well, the original plan was always to shoot your fleet first, because there was the sacrileges, there was your mutant fleet, and then there was something else in there too. I don't even remember what was it.
I think that was Gila's.
Oh yeah, there was the Gila fleet. So the entire plan was originally just
I was the obvious target.
You were going to shoot the mutant, and we were just
How coordinated was this? Because we have on the left-hand side we have Gas Tyrell back in leading triumvirate, Rots for Out of the Blue. We have Seto for Dread Bomb, and Uvalacius for Dock Workers. And on the right-hand side, Sandrin under Stan Luna, we have Celestial Empires, Chaser, Black Sky from Fraternity, Weissman from NSH, and Eccentric from Fraternity. How coordinated was this? Since we almost equal numbers of monitors.
I didn't know that NSH was coming. That's the one group. I think they showed up quite far into the fight.
Yeah, they were late.
Yeah, so they kind of just showed up because the fight was happening, I think. I don't know if they were shooting us. I wouldn't put them on our side of the BR, because I had no idea they were coming. They definitely weren't on our side. But I knew all the Fappy alliances would be there. I heard that Frat was coming. Originally, they were going to come and shoot us. They were going to come and just third party and come and kill me. And I was like, "Hey, no, should not do that, buddy." He tried to spoke to his FC, and he's like, "Yeah, okay, we'll help you." But like on-grid coordination was just like before the fight. I gave a basic game plan of like, "Here's what I think we should do." We all agreed, "Yeah, this is what we should do." We did that. We weren't on comms together or anything like that, so it was pretty chill.
What about your side of things, Valesius?
On the armor timer, to back up to that, I did all the coordination between all the fleets, and then I ran one of the Tengu fleets. In this fleet, for the hull, that was we were all in a group Discord chat, not chat, but like doing dual comms, on your Mumble or TeamSpeak, and then Discord voice. And that coordination was more about if someone has a problem, can another fleet step in to help it? So originally the plan was my 94 Harbingers or so are just going to shoot all of Sandra and here's Simis, and then all of the other Serbs are just going to focus mutants. And that was the plan. And the idea was, well, if we could just neuter this, we can hopefully ignore the sacrileges, because sacrileges are kind of not good. And then we'll just tank the Gilas for as long as we can while doing this. And then eventually it got to the point where Seto was calling that the Gilas were doing too much damage on his fleet, and the 100 MN Gilas made the very wise choice of not moving 80 kilometers from my Harbingers, and I was volleying them with beams at that point. And when I say volley, I mean one cycle from from a gun, not like 2 or 3 shots. I had one shot, so it was if you convert it to like real time, it was maybe like one dead Gila every two seconds. So the trading was pretty extreme.
Well, with various different FCs and various different groups, you all brought different compositions. You mentioned you brought 95 Harbingers. Well, you passed me your fleet scan. That is quite a lot of T1 Harbingers. I do have questions for that afterwards. But what did the other groups you were fighting alongside bring in that fight?
It was just all Serbs. I think it's something that people feel pretty comfortable fighting in null with, because they're very quick, they shoot very far, and they apply to immune and hull. I'm not going to say that makes it a Serb favored matchup. I think it's too much is focused on the execution of both sides. I think that's far more important. I don't know, Sanjin, what do you think about that?
I'd say it's slightly Serb favored, but it is ultimately, it's not a wide gap like the Tengus against mutants. It's kind of the SC skill can make up for it on either side. But when everyone shoots you, your fleet doesn't do too well, apparently. Who would have thought?
Oh yeah, the Horde was here too, and they had like 20 or something bombers, and there's a couple of Void bombers thrown in there too. The Void bombers, they shout out to them. They did some mayhem.
Shout out to Muskie, my boy.
And what about you, Sandra? Fighting alongside these Fappy alliances, are they all blue to each other, and Legacy, or they somewhat do their own thing?
Seeker was made blue to Legacy. That's Celestial Empire, like a week or 2 ago, I remember. Other than that, the only other alliance that's blue to us in Fappy is Fed Up. So Forsaken Empire isn't blue to us. Apparently they don't like us that much. When I came to one of their fights before, I got some angry messages.
Is Fed Up no longer part of Legacy?
No, they are. They are part of Legacy, as far as I'm aware, at least. But they're blue to us. Other than that, it was kind of like we evicted Imperium out of Fountain. We want to keep Fountain somewhat stable, and these people are loosely aligned to us. It's kind of like Provi before the war, where we're not allied with them, but they are. I'm trying to think of the right word. Like they're favored to us. There is a word, but I can't think of it.
And you were shooting at the same people fighting against your guys, your proxy guys.
Yeah, we were working together to defend their fort because we want to keep Fountain as neutral to us.
How was fighting alongside them, since these different groups have, well, aside from the Immunin, which is universally a meta golem in null blocks, what was it like fighting alongside them? How did they differ in their fleet compositions, and style of command.
I don't know too much about the style of command because, like I said, we were loosely coordinating with just like we gave a game plan and executed it. But for their doctrines, obviously, I have some comments about their doctrines. There's a reason the current meta ones are the meta ones. For a fight this scale, Gilas and Sax are definitely not what I would choose.
What did you bring?
What was that?
What did you bring?
I brought Munions. Originally, I was going to bring Serbs, but then when I heard everyone else bringing Serbs, I didn't want to get into a wet noodle fight, so I brought Munions instead, and then understandably got bullied by everyone on grid for being in Munions.
Yeah, Sandra, I'm really glad. Do you mind if I interrupt for a second, Rich? I'm sorry. So I'm really glad, Sandra, that you brought the Munion, because the dumbest matchup in Null, in my opinion, is heavy missile Serbs fighting heavy missile Serbs trying to outrun each other's missiles. It's the stupidest thing, and every time I see it, I'm like, this is like the dumbest, like stereotypical nullsec thing. Because people just trying to like avoid each other's damage while applying damage. It's just the most nullsec thing I've ever heard of.
Oh, I'll have to break this down for people who don't quite understand. But let me get something to weigh down my pusher talk. The problem with missiles are they track from where you shoot. So if you're running and chasing someone and they shoot a missile here, and you're running into them. So that's a bad idea. So you don't want to run into them, because when you shoot a missile here, it's going to have to chase them even further. So it's a stupid idea. You don't want to chase somebody shooting missiles at you. But how are you going to apply damage if you can't get close? At some point, you're going to have to stop chasing, and the other person's going to run out of your range, and they're going to think, "Oh man, I got to run back. I got to go apply damage." I can see why it's just obnoxious.
Yeah, it's just everyone trying to kite each other, get their missiles to apply, whilst the other side's missiles aren't applying. So it's just.
I see Deepwater Hooligans and Of Sound Mind brought a battleship fleet, a heavy armor battleship fleet.
Yeah, that's quite different from Cerberus's. You're stuck where you are.
What's the story on them?
Because if I could speak to that, yeah, I had someone from Deepwater message me about it. I'll probably call them 420 because that's how I knew them from Wormhole Space. But Of Sound Mind had this Abaddon stash from before the economic changes came about, whatever they were called, scarcity. So they've had these just collecting dust and low-sec nearby. So it was just like a convenient thing they had handy. And then I don't know if the faxes were there too, but I mean, the fax is easy to move out and about. So it was just a simple thing.
I spoke to Tim from Deepwater, who I think was their FC before the fight. He said, he didn't say what he had, but he said, I've got a doctrine in the area that I'm going to come to the fight and just, I don't want to leave with any ships. So obviously they suicided towards the end, but he made a promise that if I shot him last, he'd shoot me last. So.
We see that's what makes things, not big nullsec block fights sometimes more interesting, is that you get this unconventional stuff. You've got like Abaddons, you've got Harbingers, Gilas, Sacrileges. None of that stuff is out of the big popular levels, so it's, I don't know. I think that's something a lot of people in this fight appreciated too. It's just a wide variety of doctrines.
How did the Sacrileges do?
I don't
for
think
the Abaddons, they're also mega pulse fitted, so they're very short range. It's very easily to be kited by Serbs with like 150 kilometer plus.
I didn't realize they were pulse fitted. I thought they were beams.
Well, I was actually like 30 kilometers away from the Abaddons a lot of the time there, and that's like meat grinder range for Abaddons shooting Harbingers or any battlecruiser. So they actually got maybe like 12 of us, and then they did something else, and I don't know what.
With the Sacrileges at Fed Up and Celestial Empire fleeted, who was that a choice they consulted with you before, or was it something they wanted to try out and have fun with?
No, that's one of the main doctrines in Fountain, from what I can tell, are the Gilas and the Sacs. So they just brought those, but on a fight that scale, Sacrileges aren't great. They like the EWAR just doesn't scale that great. It's like when it's like 40-man fleets versus like up to 80, you can use Sacs, but like as you get to about 60, Zealots become better, and then once you get past 60, it's like just use the meta, like Serbs, Eagles, Munions, the meta for a reason. They're all just much more effective when you get to the larger numbers.
The ship's been using hurricanes. I don't want to say it looks kitchen sink, but it's everywhere. You have heavy armor doctrine for brawling. You have, I don't want to say kiting, but a kiting doctrine. You have everything here: shield, armor, brawling, everything.
It just no one left the gate. We all just sat there.
Yeah, it was great. I was 30 off the gate, and I just followed the third fleet around.
We do have 2 videos to review, if Matter if you could pull those up. One of which we had some questionable editing, but the one recorded by dock workers is excellent. I'll post.
Yeah, I'm gonna let my guy know that. By the way, you said that. His name's True Killjoy. I'll give him a shout out, and maybe want to mute it because the music's a little weird.
Well, it's got fleet comms, which is.
Oh yeah, occasionally.
I'll let you pull that up, Matterall. I need to show the video. I'm streaming the video. Okay. Let's hope my computer can support this. It should be able to. Okay.
Well, okay. From the get-go, I'm being bullied.
Well, that was what Seto said. Seto was.
Of course, Seto said to bully me. Fucking Seto.
Oh my god! I think that mutant right there you're shooting is the guy who recorded the other video. This is the perspective.
It is.
This is a perspective. Bad juice. This is a perspective of the Harbingers, T1 Harbingers.
Yep.
Why? Actually, I have a question. Why the choice of T1 Harbingers for this? You could have used the Tengus. You no longer have the skill point problem.
So there was a lot of reasons. One is I had 2 other motivated groups friendly to us that wanted to join in TD Sin or Scary Wormhole People and No Forks Given. They both have Harbinger fleets already, and so does Doc. So integrating that into one fleet becomes very simple, and I value simplicity over efficiency. I'd rather something be simple. And another thing is that I've always wanted to test Harbingers on a bit of a larger scale, because in my opinion, they should be able to outtrade almost anything when you get like 90 of them in a similar scale, because they cost like 60 mil. And as you can see with the scimitars on screen right now, that's one beam shot and the scimitar is just falling over. So as you can see, like the trading actually goes really, and the same with the Gilas. So it was, as long as you're not being like focused completely the entire time, like the kill speed is very high. So
yeah,
there was some things I wanted to test.
I've seen you guys running a Harbinger since Predator Elite was still running the show, and you guys do a lot of good stuff with them.
They're an underrated doctrine for sure. Probably the biggest thing we've done with them is we fought Slice, Feroxes in similar numbers. They brought 2 Hodreds, and we still beat them there without losing a ship.
How many Harbingers?
It's also worth mentioning that with the indie changes recently, T1 battlecruisers are actually really, really cheap in comparison to everything else. Like with insurance accounted for, it's only like 50 mil to lose a T1 battlecruiser.
Yeah, I would have been reluctant to go with T1 battlecruisers between last year's moon changes making T1 hulls comparatively more expensive and the industry changes, but now they're great.
Did the scarcity affect your decision to use this doctrine at all?
Only to the extent that I knew any one of the major Delve alliances could show up in massive numbers that would be unfightable. So it was more about respecting the possibility and whelping something I was willing to whelp.
If you brought those Tengus, you wouldn't have been leaving with those Tengus.
Yeah, and it's why I didn't.
Well, how's the... Well, we obviously know the scarcity has affected the no blocks in some way, but for a low-sec group like yours, how has the scarcity changes affected you?
The biggest things for us is we used to be and still are very dread focused, and when it costs us 6-7 bill to fit a dread. If you're lucky, it's kind of a lot to ask someone, especially if they're like dual boxing dreads. If they lose both of them, they're out 12-13 bill. That kind of stinks. So I think that's been one of the biggest areas that it affects us. And then broadly speaking, when it comes to what people in low sec are willing to field, even in just small gang or casual roams or people in FW, is that people are flying cheaper ships. And because we're in the middle of faction warfare and where we live, those are the two biggest things, I think.
Well, with your
So-
presence
so
in faction... Go ahead.
Here we can see one of the problem with Harbingers is their cap. That constantly eat cap boosters and recharge their cap. So a lot of times they will run out of cap with their gun firing.
Biggest thing was the void bombs that got us to 0. I wasn't ever really micro warp jamming around, so we were pretty okay on cap up until when we got void bombed.
Yeah, so that's generally the problem with energy beamed or pulsed ships or doctrines. They have a problem with the cap.
Well, Dockworkers is... your home is in Komonen, is it?
Yep.
Why are you all the way up in Fountain? You're a long way from home.
Yeah, you're right in that. I would say Dockworkers is more deployment heavy than low-sec heavy, to be honest. I put us in a C2 null-sec static wormhole for a couple of weeks before. I put us out in Curse. Sandra might remember that one fondly over a couple of fights. And then, obviously, we've got jump clones in Fountain. So between our wormhole, two people who scan wormholes, that was a stupid way of putting it, but between that and jump freighters and all that, we can almost reliably get anywhere in the game with enough, preparation and foresight.
How is the situation in Losec? I remember you were part of the Bitum Broiled campaign with Snuff and Baltram's group, No Handlebars. I do remember that after the Alamake fight, where Wrecking Crew lost several Titans, things definitely slowed down.
The Titan fight stopped after that, you're right, and there was never another Dread fight after that. They grinded some of our structures down while bleeding a lot of ISK in the process. Over the 2 months of that whole war, I'm going to call it, Snuff, NSH, and Frat lost a total of 1 trillion ISK combined. So there was more fighting that happened after that Keepstar. It was just on a bit of a lower scale. We used a lot of Kikimoras and Nightmares, and they didn't have too much of a strong answer to anti-cap structures shooting their active tank revelations, pausing the structure. So it was the fights were just a lot different after Amamake.
So with Harbingers, you brought Guardians as your logi?
Yep, we had it was like 12 Guardians, and then our friends in TDSyn are Oni Aerospace, so they had around 8 or 9 of those.
So it's also micro warp drive fitted Guardians, right?
No, and I understand that makes some people feel a little weird when you micro warp drive your DPS and AB your logi, but for my specific uses, I just recognize that I can't get too far, and generally the fights I take, that's not a problem.
This reminds me very much of a discussion that was had whilst you were back in Brave with me about the Drakavac doctrine, if you remember that. All the arguments about MWD versus AD. God.
Go on.
It was
so it's sort of like the fax version where you just stand in the center and then your DPS orbit or go around your logis.
I see. How many Harbingers? So you came in with 95 Harbingers. How many did you walk out with?
54.
Ooh.
Which is a pretty fair number, but I mean, if Sandra wanted to shoot us, that number could very well be 0. They were far more interested in shooting Serbs, which is fine with me, because if you look at the kill speed of... My kill speed is faster than Serbs. I think that's very fair to say after looking at that video, so it's kind of deceptive on what you should be shooting.
Well, this is Bad Juice's video. As you can clearly see at the start, we're going to skip that. We're definitely going to skip that. I'll put it into theatre mode. So, we'll watch this, and I'd like to talk about the situation in Fountain at hand. With these various different groups currently living in Fountain, are you concerned with, I guess, incursions coming up or people trying to cross the and push into Fountain, especially as I believe Triumvirate or Volta and their friends trying to expand into the west?
I've been aware of it since before it happened. Like, spy intel. I know they're going to deploy there. I knew what their goals were. And one of their, they have their maiden fleet, out of the blue. This is like a month and a few weeks ago, like at the start of last month. We went and dunked that, and that kind of put a damper on their deployment there. Then I got angry messages from Forsaken Empire for ruining their content. But we're keeping an eye on it the whole time. We want to make sure, we want to leave the content there, but we also want to make sure that Fountain is stable enough that we can, that we still can effectively control the region. So for big timers like a staging fort whole time, we'll show up, we'll make sure it goes cleanly. And but other than that, we're happy to let the content just play out. We as much as Reddit would like to claim that we're the big boogeyman ruining everyone's content, I am cognizant of other people's enjoyment of the game.
Well, I'm taking a look at the Fountain server entity now. At the very top, we have, Fed Up holding the majority of the central and western areas. UMAD, that will be I can't say the alliance name. Well, actually, I can. Gangbang Team, that will be the Bulgarian guys who've always lived in Fountain and camped it. This will be the NPC stations. This north central-ish constellation belongs to Celestial Empire. I'm surprised that Forsaken Empire is still kicking around, especially after they disbanded after the events of the Veil of the Silent War with Fraternity. Now, okay. The reason why I can't say that alliance name is because their alliance name, Gangbang Team, they've had this for a very long time. However, they ran into a problem with the owner of Ezekiel, Squiz, and that was, just because of their existence, they've caused a huge problem to people wanting to potentially advertise on Ezekiel. So he renamed their alliance to Alliance numbers, so that Gangbang doesn't show up on, I guess, the search engine optimization that websites use and Google AdSense uses. And these guys were very upset, and they sent a very, very angry message to Squiz. But, well, what can you do? That is a very funny name, Gangbang Team.
Yeah, they live in NPC Fountain and just shoot whoever is nearby, which up until last year was the initiative.
Oh, and then down south, where Initiative used to live, we have Stella Ris... I don't know how to pronounce it.
Stella Renascitor?
Renascitor. LSH. What about LSH, Sandrin? That is an interesting relationship.
I think there's an agreement with the FAPI alliances to just let them have that solve, but I don't think they're part of FAPI. I think it's kind of a you leave us alone, we'll leave you alone deal.
Do they? Does Losek Schneier Lupin show up for anything?
I think they help FAPI sometimes, but I have no idea how coordinated it is. I'm not that involved in FAPI. Like I said, it's just when we need to make sure the region stays friendly to us, we make sure it stays friendly to us.
Is there any plans to expand it into Cloud Ring, Outer Ring?
Not as far as I know. I mean, Fed Up's a pretty small alliance. That's quite a lot of solve for them.
That's my thought too. That's they have more soft systems than what I expect them to have with people in USTZ.
Cloud Ring.
So with the 4 Dread Bomb you land on the grave for the second battle report, they're all capital gun fitted. So were you planning on just after dread bombing the faxes use them as hardware dread, or just completely just use them as ammo to kill their dreads, or is that used on a structure, or what's the point of those 4?
Those dreads, I would actually say, are very eager people, and there wasn't a big plan being like, okay, we're gonna bring these 4 dreads in, 5 dreads, so we can just nuke down the faxes. It was rather these people haven't had a chance to use their dreads, and they just were looking for a reason to, and they wanted the joy of sieging and shooting a cap. That's what they wanted, and they got it.
But could they have been? Well, one of them got out, it seems. Ignato Nari. The other 4. So it's 4 plus 1, so it's 5 total dreadnoughts. The other 4 unfortunately perished. Were there any possibilities of getting them out, or did they knew what they were getting into?
Well, if I remember right, Sound Mind had 2 hicks, 3 hicks, something like that. So if they hick point them, then they can't get them out of the gate. And I'm skeptical that we would have had an exit Sino handy for them. So their only way out would have been us shooting the hicks, which it was never communicated to me that these dreads were even coming in, or that they would have needed help trying to take the gate out. So my suspicion is that a bunch of, pulse-fitted Abaddons with conflag, which do probably 1600, 1700 DPS, because that's what they do at close range, probably just wrecked these revs really quickly. And then the Balgorns they have can cap out revs pretty decently easy because they have 3 or 4.
Did those Balgorns ever cap you out or touch you, or they were lambs to the slaughter?
Didn't notice it. I think they would have just been on the capitals pretty much the whole time.
I see.
So those dreads were not dropped in by FC. They were basically by player's own will.
I would say both. The FC probably called for it because I know he's been looking for a reason to use them because his people have been wanting to use them. So I would say both.
Well, if they did jump out, they would have. If they jumped the gate from J5A back to BTAC D, they would have landed straight into Cloud Ring, which is entirely controlled by Triumvirate.
Yeah, and they have a
the next-
Fortizar on that grid there, but they were hick pointed, so they couldn't quite take the gate.
Mm. And as for, well, the rest of the regions nearby, is Triumvirate blue to out of the blue?
Yes.
Ooh. So, I see. And out of the blue are living in pure blind. I think they're in Panic is Hysteria, which is made up of several Space Monkey Alliance members. They're living in the Panic areas. So this is becoming a little, this is a little coalition.
Yeah, I've been wondering what Out of the Blue would get themselves up to since they split themselves off from Volta a few weeks ago.
Well, it seems to be content, more content than most people are seeming to get.
It's more interesting than whatever's going on in Delve, so whenever one of these fights happen, your boy Sandrin is going to be coming up knocking.
Yeah, if we're not busy, I was actually going to come up for the armor time, but we were busy in Delve. We had our first Locust fleet, which I'm sure you've seen all the Reddit posts about where Billy missed one letter and goons have been screeching about that. But we had our Locust fleet, so I couldn't come up for the armor timer. But yeah, anytime there's content, your boy's there.
Tell me about this Locust fleet. How much do you get out of it?
I personally got nothing. I was babysitting, as is standard for an FC. But
But they don't pay you for this?
no, fuck no.
He does it for free.
Yeah,
I got a few $100 million off of 2 barges.
yeah. I think they did like 4 or 5 R64s for the first one. It was just a test run more than anything else.
It was 4 3-week pulls.
Yeah,
And and how long did this Locust fleet last?
Around 2 or 3 hours, I think.
I think it's
And how
2
many-
hours.
2 hours for how many moons?
4 3-week pulls.
Ooh.
This is with no
And-
pre-pings or anything, and people it was a primarily subcap fleet.
So it's mainly subcap. Did you guys even use Orca or just Porpoise?
There was a boost roll call, and people were allowed to bring their rorks, but there would be no SRP for anyone who lost rorks, so it was discouraged. But there's a few people with
about to
rorks
say.
and boost rorks.
So long without mining? I mean, Sound Mind just took out their dusty old Baddens out for a run. Nobody decided to take their dusty old Rorquals out for a spin?
Some people did, but there was just a test run, so it was to be stuck with primarily subcap.
And with the geographical radii, you have to jump in from low sec, or you have the choice of gating it from
I think we
World
jumped to once we have gated into Sarked and then jumped from there.
Yeah, that was
so,
what we did.
so it's not safe. It's not really safe in that way. Like you have to have capital support plus capital umbrella, basically,
Yeah.
to be able to mine safely with oracles.
I see. With the new resident now, I think I'm almost out of questions to ask. But with the new residents in Fountain, how are they settling? Am I going to see my snake implants fall in price?
They've been cramming a lot up there. Like, there's your little clip that you're gonna skip. Yeah, like there's been some dead supers and some dead rorks up in Fountain. One of my court mates managed to lose a rork up in Fountain. Good job, by the way. That I sold him that rork, and it survived being tackled like 5 times before that. Then he gets tackled and dies. But like they've been cramming pretty hard up there, from what I can tell. So
What
Well,
kind
I
of
want to tell
blueprints drop from out of there for battleships?
Vindicators. It's
Ooh,
Serpentis
Yes,
based?
Vindicator.
yeah.
But
Maybe some
right now with the industrial change, BBC is worthless right now. It's all about LP to hull, to literally battleship hull right now.
Unfortunately, there is one problem about the Serpentis space, and that is, it is not fun. I don't. It's like problem. It's not easy to run missions. Something about the agents distribution and the amount of agents there are is not ideal. Not compared to the money you can make off Garista's NPC missions.
Yeah,
Wait,
but if you compare it to other pirate faction, you only got one constellation, which I think is compared to, let's say, Mordred's Legion or the Sisters of Eve, they're the same amount of space. But if you compare to other like big pirate factions like Garistas, Angel, or even Blood Raiders, they have 2 constellations, right? So you got the least amount of space for your agents to be available for you.
Well, is there anything else of interest for you guys, Velasius, Sandrin?
I mean, it just hit me that if they're able to farm Gila PPCs in Fountain, there's the Gila fleet.
No,
they cannot. They're gonna have to go
Oh,
all the way
no?
up there.
Oh, never mind. All right.
No, they can't. They have to go all the way up there to the north to get more Gilas. But I think there should be enough Gilas out of the market, and there should be enough people with loyalty points saved up.
Gila's are really
You're saying that, and the Gila is going up like crazy.
yeah, it's like 400. It was like 370 mil for a hull when I last looked. Like it's going up pretty heavily. I don't know how
Almost
long that'll be a
doubled.
viable
Almost doubled.
choice. But
I mean, if anything, the Vigilant or the Daredevil or the Vindicator will go down with. I mean, the same thing with Frat invading Pureblind, right? If they have settled in Pureblind and start farming their NPC stations, maybe we can see a chance of the Nestors and the Barghest going down in price.
Well, since Fountain is NPC space, well, I'll be going to see more and more officers. Has somebody finally cracked out the secret on how to spawn officers in Fountain and Serpentis space?
officer mechanics are a mystery to me.
Okay. Well, we'll be wrapping this up now, but I'd like to talk about today's announcement, the one that was planned out by CCP ahead of time. They released a video which they timed to release, and it has released today. For those who did not see the video, the Alliance Tournament is back. Alliance Tournament 17. There'll be some changed rules. There'll be everybody who ran the Alliance Tournaments before will be running it again. And I am seeing Alliance Tournament players and people who are interested in Alliance Tournament come back. To which... Oh yes, I do not actually have the video. Could I...
Wars are fought on many battlefields. Bloody victories, ruthlessly ripped from enemy hands. Tattered flags, once proudly carried, fall torn upon the wrecks and the corpses of their bearers. Innumerable battles have been fought amongst these blood-stained stars. Be they for glory, supremacy, survival, or revenge. The cycle continues. There is blood yet to be shed, flags yet to burn. And among them, a few shall emerge to be hung upon the shattered piles of their enemies. Take up your flag, Capsuleer. The next battle draws nigh. This is Alliance Tournament 17.
Okay, and then for those who, like me, love the Alliance tournaments and love to watch the videos the Alliance tournament players and community released, all I can say is, apparently, the people behind Skill Yourself, the Alliance in the past, who made their name simply because they wanted CCP to say their name during an Alliance tournament, are back. CapQ is back, and people have said to bully him relentlessly if he ever comes back to EVE. And I'm going to do that right now. I'm your biggest fan, buddy. Say cheese. But I think that's all we have time for today. We will be talking about the Alliance Tournament and more details in the Alliance Tournament in the upcoming few days, Friday and Sunday in particular. So please do look forward to that.
Yeah,
So
I was
also,
really
like-
happy to see that announcement. And I bet Aurora and Swift were also struggling to keep it secret.
So there's a devlog. There's a devlog out on the Eve news page. So if you want to read more about it, the details and the time, it will be on there. And there's a Discord that you can join for all the news and update. So if you want to join Alliance tournament this year, you probably knew about this already. But just in case if you don't, there's a Discord you should join, and it will keep you updated.
For those who joined before, after the Alliance tournaments were cancelled in 2019, 2020, and, well, not 2021, thankfully, the Alliance tournament is a yearly tournament where some of the finest pilots in the game will come together under certain rules with a certain amount of numbers and certain numbers of ships, and they will compete against each other in a tournament-style format in an arena. The winners, and also people who take the second place, third place, and runners-up, will be given blueprints for a very rare and expensive set of ships known as the Alliance Tournament ships. These are worth usually hundreds of billions. None have made it to $1 trillion, but the impact did peak at around, I'd say, $750 billion each. So these ships become very coveted, and people love to buy them. And hopefully we should see the return of the Alliance Tournament within November. But that's all for today. I'd like to thank our guests, Sandra Stone and Valasius.
Cheers for having me.
Yeah, it was fun. Thanks.
Grigoran and Shen for helping me co-host. Nothing? Okay. And I'm your host, Rich Richmond. Today we have Matter All Engineering. But that'll be all for today.